Jesus, boys, girls, in-betweeners, we are back and we have entered Final Combat.
Okay, sounds lamer than MK.
Yeah, I'm gonna second that.
So here we go, this is the
How
big
can I
reveal.
kill you? You're already dead.
He's not killing him, he's saving him with lightning!
This was an interesting surprise development.
It was. I mean, I do love the design of Fire God Liu Kang. I think it was really cool.
It's essentially Raiden and Liu Kang do the fusion dance. Kronika feared
It really
their combined
is.
powers, so Raiden takes that to a very literal extreme. It would have been
like to a person who's like not really a huge Mortal Kombat fan. It seems a little bit weird. Like, okay, Raiden need to combine with the power of a mortal to become his final form, but I guess that like Liu Kang's always had that like chosen one thing going on about him.
Well, he also has a completely different element, so now we've got Fire God Liu Kang, who is a master of both fire and lightning. So...
As I beheld Satan as he fell from heaven like lightning! No? Street Fighter movie? Anyone?
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
Really? Come on. It's so good. It's so good. Gave me his sweet tats.
These glow in the dark tats. It's gonna be hard to sleep like this.
Now he's out of her league.
Okay, that was a nice callback. All right.
Yeah.
Earlier in the story, he had this little quiet conversation with Liu Kang where he tells Liu Kang that she's out of his league because she's the Khan now.
Yeah. Kaka's like, well, shit. This hasn't happened before.
She seems more interested than afraid, though. It's an interesting reaction. No, that sounded repetitive.
Well, it's not Kronika. If something changes, that makes your victory uncertain, then it was never certain to begin with.
Float powers activate!
Wiggle our hands. Wiggle our hands.
Jazz hands! So this is where the story gets very cool, actually. Like, the battle that's about to take place here is actually... I mean, it's only a cutscene, which is kind of a shame, but it is very cool to watch. It's very Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I would love it if on the side of the mountain. All of a sudden, based on the look of those guys, just Doom Guy appears out of nowhere. It's like heavy metal intensifies.
Yeah. A lot of the story sequence battles in this game feel like they could have been really cool levels if they had gone with a story mode that supported that kind of gameplay, like some of the previous Mortal Kombat spin-offs have done. Like, what was it? Deadly Alliance had something going on like that, I think.
Yeah. I guess, so I mentioned that, like, this battle isn't in-game and whatnot. Obviously not, because it's a fighting game. But I guess, it reminded me, like, Zone of the Enders 2 has probably, like, one of the best, if not the best, like, battle in a game I've ever seen. Like, the scene where you're in the valley, and you just have to fight, like, one army versus another, and just fly around and and it's like, it just feels so incredibly hype. It's a great moment in, like, gaming in general. And I don't really feel like any game ever since then has really captured that. You know the scene I'm talking about?
Somewhat.
Yeah, there's a scene. So the scene is only there's two for people who haven't seen it, where basically you are in control. You are leading a small force of robot flying things, mech suits, and you just run into a giant army on the other side of this valley. So it's like it's a vertical stage. And you have to fight you have to like basically fly around and destroy hundreds of these things and rescue your teammates who are being brought down because you can only lose so many of them. And there's a great sense of urgency to it, and considering it was running on the PS2, like, the technical limitations that platform had, it is really well executed. I mean, it's a Kojima game, obviously, but it is just like a very, very cool moment. And I don't really feel like any game's done it since.
What I want to know about this is, why is Kung Lao throwing his hat everywhere? And just decapitating these guys?
He could wipe out half the army.
He really could with that thing.
It's really hard to execute a real army versus army battle in a video game outside of like a strategy RTS kind of game, you know? Because in most circumstances, even if you have some sort of limited control over your allies, you're playing as one character or one force on the battlefield. So it's hard to create a situation where you aren't the only element on the battlefield that matters. Some games have tried it, but you know, with different levels of success. Like the Call of Duty games try to do this thing where you have AI companions who are just as competent at fighting as you, although in my experience that has led to a lot of situations where you don't actually have to do anything because the game will just beat itself.
Days home.
You know, you could have just come down off the boat like the rest
No,
of
I had to make a dramatic entrance.
I have an aesthetic and I will stick to it. And that's it. We won.
That kind of looked like someone was holding a match up in front of video game footage. Just saying. The flame was a little bit uncanny valley in a weird way that I've never been able to say of a fire effect in a video game before.
It's like really, you guys after all that, you're still gonna go at it.
It's like you guys really think you have a chance. You don't even have name tags.
You're not even wearing red shirts. Come on.
And after all this, Liu Kang and Katana and his companions just all walk into Kronika's room, and Kronika rewinds time. So the battle gets undone. It's I keep saying Kronika's the of all the godly villains that I've seen in fiction, Kronika's the one who acts the most like a god. It's just like, rewind time. Just go back where you came from. Shoo. Get thee gone.
I just love that scene where like everyone's running in and he starts flying off. I just want him to turn around and just go, "Running's for chumps."
I can fly. Finally, Kung Lao used your damn hat.
God damn it, Kung Lao.
A lot of the dialogue involving Kung Lao has to do with his hat, too.
Yep. Oh, Brofist.
Ooh.
Oh, you haven't had enough of a thrashing, eh?
There's this fun interaction in the beginning of fight dialogue between Kung Lao and Aaron Black, where Aaron Black compliments his hat, and Kung Lao says it's also a deadly weapon, and Aaron Black is, well, that's just weird.
But you will require more assistance.
And someone asks him if someone asks, I forget who, maybe it's Cassie Cage, maybe it's Johnny Cage. Someone asks him if he also throws his shoes.
Is that George Bush joke?
Yeah.
That's what? George Bush?
Yeah, it was like someone threw a shoe at him in like a press conference.
When he was like, in like the Middle East.
Yeah. Oh, well, I didn't know that, but you know, I thought it was a reference to Austin Powers. You know.
Well, that
Random
too,
Task, who is a parody of Odd Job, who is a character in James Bond who throws a deadly hat. You know.
Yeah, that's that as well. You must fight yourself to best your. You know what? Never mind. Just there's no metaphor here. Just fight.
God of thunder and fire. Combining with Raiden has the benefit of novelty, but it is also too little, too late.
Nah.
Too, you know.
Then she just pushes the.
How could it be too late? We're messing with the timeline.
She just pushes the rewind button on her VCR, and everything goes back.
That's it.
Remember, what's happening now is happening now.
Are we in now? No, we're in now.
She expected it to also rewind Liu Kang, but what he's become has resulted in him not being affected, which plays back to the reason that there weren't two Raidens as well. Raidens. Why do I keep saying Raiden? It's Raiden in Mortal Kombat, but. Yeah.
It also calls back to when she first time installed Liu Kang, Raiden was the only person who was unaffected.
Yeah. But like, because of the way Raiden works, there can only be one version of him in time at any given point.
Yeah. What I don't get is like why the frame rate has to go to shit when we're rewinding time. Can't we do this at 60 FPS?
Well, like I said, it's the VCR, so it skips all the time.
Wonder how many people in the audience are actually old enough to have actually used a VCR.
Not many, probably.
Yeah, shout outs to people who are watching this right now who have used a VCR.
I get it. He's a guy. He's like, you know, a big old thunder fire guy. These guys shouldn't really be a problem. Yeah, it's like these guys should be no problem to you.
You know, he wanted to give them a sporting chance, so he let them get a few free shots in.
It's a Sentai thing. I suppose what's interesting about this is that Kronika mentions at some point that Raiden is actually only a demigod, whereas she's actually a full-fledged god. So does merging with a human make him more powerful or less?
That's a good question.
It's whatever the plot demands.
It's Dragon Ball Super.
Yeah, basically. Just zap them with your electricity.
Again, Sentai. You gotta put on a show.
Maybe he's trying to save. Maybe he's trying to save batteries for the fight with Kronika.
Oh, I see what you did there.
And after all, we can only fight one at a time.
And this is the part where it's weird because you have to fight Kung Lao and you have to fight Kitana, but like Jade just goes down like a bitch and that's it.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting that little hold there to end with Liu Kang burning Revenant Jade's head off. You know, for as inventive as they are with the fatalities and the gameplay, the violence in the story cutscenes is surprisingly tame most of the time.
Very much. And yep,
you have to do that every time.
Yeah, gotta check my moves. Even though I did actually play Liu Kang earlier in the story.
How different is Fire God Liu Kang from regular Liu Kang? Does he have?
I honestly can't tell you. I don't think that he actually is any different. To be perfectly honest,
I think
did you notice any differences?
He just has a higher power level.
I think he has some lightning moves to go with the fire moves, but I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah, I didn't. As you can see there, I did not really stick around long enough to check.
I mean, as long as you win, it doesn't really matter in story mode.
Pretty much, yeah. That's the end goal.
Oh, it's basically Hicks are fiery now.
I like how he's a god, but he still uses nunchucks. He's like, yep, still got a use for these.
I can walk him. I can bonk him on the head with.
Well, you know, there's Godhood, and then there's Bruce Lee. One is clearly better than the other.
That's absolutely true. One of the things that will actually, speaking of nunchucks, one of the things that will never cease to amaze me about Bruce Lee is that you can look him up on YouTube. There's actually a video of Bruce Lee playing ping pong but using nunchucks instead of a paddle. And he not only plays it, but he plays it really well.
I don't know how he got quite so good with those things, but he did.
Did you ever see his training schedule? He trained like 6 to 8 hours a day. He was a machine.
Yeah, Bruce Lee was ridiculous.
All that does is remind me of a dialogue sequence, and I think it was the second Project Cross Zone game on 3DS. Because it's Phoenix Wright with a bunch of other characters, and they have to sneak into like some castle or something. It's like Strider Ryu's like, I'll just run up the wall of Zero, I'll just wall jump up it. It's like, okay, how about for us normal humans, Kazuya Kojima? It's just a simple climb, and then Ryu's like, yeah, this is no problem. For us normal humans who don't work out, it's 8 hours a day.
Should have been me, Liu Kang, from the beginning.
Now you must fight your bro.
Will be.
You're not my bro. My bro's back on the ship.
Ooh.
So yeah, this does feel like a little bit like padding towards the final. Like, yeah, we're at the final fight now, but it's just like you gotta fight these two people first.
It's the enemy rush before the final boss.
It's just there to give Fire God Liu Kang a few more enemies to fight, since otherwise he would really only be using him against Kronika.
Yeah, I guess.
Ooh.
Yeah, still got the same fatal blow, though, unfortunately.
Getting your butt kicked by Kung Lao, that's embarrassing.
For me or for Liu Kang or for both?
Both.
I'll take the trade.
Yep.
He still sucker punched you with his hat as you threw the killing blow.
You
Well,
were
I mean,
god.
I still won, so
You're a god and you got sucker punched by a hat. What does that say about you?
I'm not the god of hats.
If I was, I'd be totally cooler than this. Well, he does have a hat on his back, so he could be.
No, that's why he's not the god of hats. He doesn't know how hats work. He puts them on his back. Not his head.
I just want
It's a
Kung
fair,
Lao to be,
it's a,
I just want Kung Lao to be like, dude, hats don't work that way. You realize that, right?
it's a miracle he has pants on.
God of Lightning cannot dress himself.
I'm not the god of dressing myself.
Still you are alive.
Yes, I'm a god.
I got these sweet tats. Have you not seen my chats? Check out my chats.
Power cannot rival.
By their powers combined, I am Captain Liu Kang.
As you wish, mother.
Yeah, we get to fight Centurion, who is also a god. So at least some more climactic fight.
The thing about this is, like, it's implied Centurion could have won, but she wasn't giving it her all because she's conflicted over her mother's plan.
Yeah, a little bit.
Which plays into
You
her
did-
arcade mode endings because she ends up going up against Kronika in arcade mode too. And it's said that in arcade mode she essentially decides that her mother's balance is wrong because she's a goddess of virtue, you know? Her arcade mode ending is super dark though because she gets so fed up trying to create the perfect timeline that she creates this really grimdark timeline where everyone spends centuries upon centuries fighting pure evil monsters until they're so battle weary that they'll cling to peace and light with everything they have once they have it.
That is pretty fucking dark.
Yeah.
I mean, if it works.
The arcade mode endings in this game are surprisingly good. They all just play around with what the different characters would do with the power to control the timeline. Like Kano initially creates a timeline where he gets everything that he wants, and like the scene they show is like Sonya Blade and some other female character fighting in a cat fight in some sort of like skimpy underground fighting ring. But then he realizes that the joy wasn't in the having, it was in the getting. So he recreates the timeline so that he has to fight for everything he wants, and it's always just out of reach. And he doesn't always get it, but when he does, it's super awesome for him or whatever. That's Kano's perfect timeline. So yeah.
I suppose that's interesting. Like, yeah, it is like it makes sense because that's like a mirror of real life, really. That like when it feels like you earn something, it always feels better than just being given it on a platter, basically.
Yeah, but you know, Kano's also an asshole, so.
Facts, yes.
Unlike in Gearus's arcade ending, he takes over the hourglass from Kronika and then realizes why it took her so long and why she kept failing to create the perfect timeline. So he's like doing it over and over and over again, trying to create the perfect timeline so that he can just stop existing. But he can't do it.
He's just trying to kill himself the whole freaking time.
There are easier ways to do this.
Maybe if you just fought at the same time rather than taking turns.
You will be exalted in the new era, Centurion.
No, Matas!
My fire bending.
He does look like an Avatar character, you know.
And you
He does, yeah.
have failed.
They haven't played the failure music yet.
This is where we find out that he has in fact failed, and she is rewinding time as we speak.
History rewinds, giving way to the
Also, you suck.
I like how one of Kronika's attacks is to just send a T-Rex rampaging across the screen.
She does, and you don't see it. I had to cut out when she did that because it was one of the attempts where I lost. But yes, there is a tech where she basically throws a T-Rex at you. Yeah, it was kind of odd. She only did it once, and the 7 or 8 times it took me to get through this. So yeah, this is not going to be exciting for anyone who's like anyone who thought like the previous battles were not very good. This is going to be even worse because it's me just doing jumping kicks and the same like string over and over again. Because the only thing that I figured out that she has an AI loop where she will not block basically a jump kick followed by a different attack.
Yeah. Kronika, when you try to fight her properly, she's a real bitch.
Pretty much, yeah. You do have to fight these time reverent creation things, whatever they are, but they have very low health. So as you can see, I took off like half her health with one combo.
There's the T-Rex.
Yeah, he's just waiting in the wings.
It's this dopey FMV T-Rex that looks like it walked out of a Dino Crisis CGI, too.
You see True running through the background.
If you lose the first round, she resets time like to space, to this asteroid at the dawn of time. And you fight all the following rounds on that stage instead of this stage.
And the T-Rex is dead now. I just noticed that.
Whoa.
He died between scenes.
How did that happen? Did he just give up on life?
Yeah, see, there he is.
Maybe a Spinosaurus got him. That would explain it.
Yeah, the jank house thing from Jurassic Park. Oh no, there he is. It's a different dinosaur. Never mind.
Hey, different dinosaur.
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry, there's too many dinosaurs in the stage.
Why does it keep sending Sonya?
Oh, that's a Brontosaurus or a Brachiosaurus or some other long-necked saurus.
It's a do you think he saw us? Yep, same combos.
If it works. That's how everyone got past Goro in the first game.
Yeah, pretty much. Trying to fight Goro properly was even worse than Kronika.
Yeah, like I said, I never got to Shen Song in the arcades when I was playing it when it first came out. I always went to Goro and lost.
Yeah. If you lose to Kronika in arcade modes, sometimes she does the fatality where she levitates you into the air, rips you to pieces, and then rewinds you back into one piece, then rips you to pieces again, and just animation loops through like 6 different versions of that.
Nice.
Was breaking the hands first necessary?
He's showing his disdain for her. Also, I guess like the thing is here is that she's controlling the sands of time, so she was also made of sand, I guess. So she turned the glass when he melted her.
Oh,
wow, Ryan, you look plain.
You look really old school right now, Ryan.
You have proven worthy to
Raiden.
my place.
It's Raiden.
Damn it!
Whatever.
Lord Liu Kang.
I have irises now.
I can actually see this is incredible. Is this what you guys have all the time?
Where do we go from here?
Is this what life is
So
like?
I can take off my silly hat now, too.
I can watch porn now.
And sculpt a new
You know, it's weird. Up until now, everything was just colored blue. It was so surreal. I wanted to write a song about it, but someone else beat me to it.
Oh God! Why? It was the one thing this playthrough was missing was Eiffel 65.
We are far in the past.
So this is kind of weird. This is kind of like a passenger sort of moment where he's like, okay, I have to live forever and resculpt time. Don't want to do that alone. Maybe I'll just grab Katana and we can hang out together for eternity.
Next timeline. Then I will.
She totally digs me, right? This won't be awkward at all.
It's like, you guys remember that, like, when Passages came out, everyone's like, this isn't really right what he did, right? You guys realize that. It's the same thing here. It's like, oh, do you want to live forever and just sit on a rock and resculpt time with me? No? Oh, well, too fucking bad, because we're here now.
Who wants to live forever?
I don't know. She looks like she's down for it.
Yes. But no matter
Well, it's not like I have a choice.
It is. Well, she's already referring to people as mortals rather than, like, humans or anything else, so it's...
Ningen.
Filthy Ningen.
Subat actually intensifies.
will face them together.
And that's it. That's
We don't find out.
Dude, no, we're on Final Destination.
We don't find out what kind of timeline they create. Although there might be something about that in Liu Kang's ending in arcade mode. I haven't actually played as him in arcade yet. I should probably fix that.
Final Destination. No items. Let's do this.
Well, that's that. We're done with Mortal Kombat 11. I hope you've all enjoyed the ride.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. It's been a pleasure for having me. And head to my channel and subscribe, guys. Please, I need it.
You heard the man.